Hey everybody, I'm Sean Ryan, partner and co-founder of R2 Accounting, and this is our 2 cents. On this video and podcast series, the purpose is to get information and experiences to small and medium-sized business owners to help give them some guidance. And these might be experiences that we've come across or those that our customers and peers have come across as well. If you find this informative, feel free to like and subscribe below to get future content updates, and also feel free to leave a comment in the comments section. So with all that said, let's get going. So hey everybody, thanks again for joining. Today on our 2 cents, I wanted to go over a nice little case study actually for you guys. We're joined today by Doreen Ng, the Director and Early Childhood Specialist with Little Heartprints Academy. The Academy's been operating for close to a half a year now. And Doreen, your story is a perfect entrepreneurial case study. It showcases your drive to follow your passion. You know, you're contributing to the education and development of young children, and you've actually created one of the most sought after childhood academies in Central Calgary, only been open for about 6 months. So I think the story can provide valuable insight to entrepreneurs who are kind of just getting going. A lot of the hills you had to climb are likely still fresh in your mind, and reflecting on those challenges and how they were overcome would be extremely useful information. So, for the listeners, Doreen, you and I were introduced in spring of 2021, I think, prior to you guys opening.
Yes.
Little Heartprints had been building up towards that opening in July, which it did. And you've got such a large amount of success in such a short amount of time. So maybe first of all, thanks for being here. And then before we get into Little Heartprints itself, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and maybe the experience you had prior to getting this going?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
To share my story with everyone. So my background is I've been a teacher for almost 11 years before opening up Little Heartprints, and pretty much teaching early childhood. And I focused most of my education in the early years. So I taught grade 1 and 2 for probably 6-7 years. And my passion was always in education. And I just love the educating piece and also just making a difference in little minds. And then that I had my first son. And then when I had my first son, I was looking for childcare. And that's when I kind of fell into some issues and having a hard time finding the quality childcare that I wanted for my own child. So then I kind of thought, you know what, I'm a teacher. I love teaching. I love kids. Why not start my own thing? So that's kind of.
Well, yeah, and I mean, not alone in that, I'm sure. I'm a parent too. We all have that trouble, right? So, but I mean, that's great. Like you followed your passion. You're so in the space that, I mean, for you, it was probably just natural, right? Oh, if I can't find someone to do this, I'll do it myself.
Yeah. And I guess going back a little bit, I forgot to mention that before all of this, when I was younger, I always had this dream of opening my own school. Didn't know what it would look like. Didn't know, was it going to be in Calgary? Was it going to be overseas? But before we opened Little Heartprints, my husband and I, we partnered up with Pencils of Promise, which is a foundation through the US, and they built schools all around the world, well, different places in the world. And then we teamed up with them, and we actually built a school in Guatemala.
Is that right?
So that was one of the initial stages of my idea coming into fruition. And I'm like, there you go. I was able to open a school for a small community in Guatemala, and Guatemala has a special part in my heart just because I went when I was younger and did a Habitat for Humanity trip, and got to know the culture a little bit more and fell in love with the people there, and just realized that education wasn't available to all these kids that wanted to learn. So I came back and was like, I need to one day open a school for them. And then that's when we came across Pencils of Promise, and then we opened up school there. And then that's kind of the initial stages. And then later on, then Little Heartprints came about. So,
And I mean, what an experience that must have been. I'm sure if you were trying to do Little Heartprints just off the hop yourself, there'd be a whole bunch of extra learning. But I mean, I know you're talking about Guatemala, and we're here in Calgary, but there had to be some learnings and stuff that overlap to translate into what you were doing now.
Yeah, for sure, to some degree. But with Pencils of Promise, they luckily had a big team to help us with all of the on ground, obviously, but it was definitely a little taste of what it would be like.
Just a little taste of things to come. Yeah, for sure. So then, actually, so that's great background. So you had the passion, you knew what you wanted to do. You made the decision to get going. So in the beginning, what would you say the biggest tasks were that you needed to address in order to get things going forward? Like, what was the biggest challenges you had getting it up and off the ground?
The biggest challenge was construction,
Okay.
for sure. That was the only, like, everything else seemed to fall into place so nicely. Like everything, I had my vision was coming, like it was clear what I wanted to do, and I had the right people to do it. But then with construction and the delays with the city, and then it was during COVID, so everything was just like constantly delayed and pushed back. My goal was to open around spring, early spring, and we ended up opening in June, right? So
Yeah.
we had a lot of families waiting, and that was just causing me tons of like stress and anxiety. So that was probably like the most challenging part of it, was just the construction and meeting the guidelines that the city wanted
Yeah.
us to meet.
And
Yeah.
it's so funny because you're getting stuff going, and you can push things along. But I was actually going to ask you, what was the stuff that was out of your control that was keeping you up at night? It sounds like that was probably a big component. I mean, you can't control construction. Who can
Well,
control a pandemic?
yeah.
I mean, that's a huge insurmountable thing. Was there anything else maybe that was kind of well, I don't know about out of your control, but what was the biggest thing keeping you up at night, I guess?
Um, just not knowing the date of when we were going to open, because I already had families enrolled. They've sent me the deposits and they were ready to start. They believed in me. They were like, "Yeah, when you guys are ready, we're going to start right when you open." And they were along for the ride with me. Like they did not know when we were going to open, so it was just not knowing a date and
Yeah,
feeling like we couldn't meet the family's needs at the time, and that was
yeah.
keeping me up tonight. But also, like, I had a newborn, so that was keeping me up too. So
That'd be keeping you up anyway. So not much you can do about that. Yeah, but that's actually interesting. Is it's great. I mean, you had families already ready to go before you even were open, and I mean, part of that, I guess, speaks to your marketing strategy. I mean, what were you doing prior to opening to kind of like drive awareness, and what was your marketing strategy just in general?
the main marketing was just on social media, because that was the only thing I was familiar with, and I knew how impactful social media and Instagram can be nowadays. So, um, and I know, like with moms, they're looking for this type of information. And what I was putting up on my Instagram r- stories was very like educational, and teaching them about, what our schools going to look like when we open, and getting them excited about it. And I took the time to like take the quality pictures and writing up all the blurbs I needed to write up to make sure it sounded like very educational but also really fun for them, right? So most of it came from social media and Instagram, and um, also
Yeah.
my website. Like I spent quite a bit of time on my website. I had a lot of good friends help me and give me input that had a background in marketing, and they pretty much sat down with me and just went through every page and said, you need to do this, 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 and change this to make it really pop out and grab the attention of your consumers, right? So
Yeah.
that was a huge thing for me.
And then, so then I guess you went ahead. It was a great situation. I mean, were you guys at capacity when you opened?
Yeah. Well, when we
Awesome.
opened, we already had like people paid already, but then
Yeah.
they were all kind of trickling in at different months. We had a good chunk that started right when we opened. And then because our center only takes children that are 19 months and up, they were just waiting for their child to turn that age and then join us. So,
Yeah.
but they were all ready to start when their child was
That's
ready. So,
that's perfect. And I'll ask you one other thing. So you were kind of waiting to get going. Um, sure, your marketing strategy was working. You've got enough families that are saying, "Hey, I want to be part of this." We're paid up. We've just started. Did you guys need any funding or anything to bridge that gap from when you started? I mean, I think you guys incorporated in 2020, right? So, I mean, there was a good year and change where you're getting all this stuff going. Did you have a bit of a gap that you needed to fill with external funding or?
oh, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually applied for a ton of loans, and through this program with Futurepreneur,
Hmm.
um, and BDC, and they were able to lend me 60,000, and that was super helpful.
That's perfect.
And then yeah, like just personal loans, and that we just
Yeah,
needed
sure.
to. And then I did a little bit of fundraising as well, and kind of
Yeah.
got the support from friends and family. Did like a little online auction, and just kind of made it more fun for everyone to kind of get involved. And
Yeah,
yeah.
that's perfect. And actually, for the viewers and listeners, maybe that are, the the friends and family thing and personal loans, I mean, that stuff people can sort of enact on their own. But for somebody who might be a little nervous about, oh, I got to go to a bank or I got to go to an institution to find that external funding, maybe just a bit about your experience. How did you get started? What were some of the first steps you took to kind of get in front of some of those organizations?
Well, I heard about Futurepreneurs through my husband. He recommended that to another friend. That was kind of how he heard about it. And actually, that was a very, no, I wouldn't say easy, but it was a very intensive process, but it was very straightforward.
Okay.
So if you go on the website and it pretty much lays it out step by step what you need to do. You need to send them like a financial forecast of what your business is going to look like. And that was the hardest part, but luckily I had the help of my husband to help me through all the financials.
Sure.
And that itself can be very daunting. So if you can find someone that is good with numbers to kind of help you fill that in, that's the biggest chunk. And then the rest of it is just writing out why you need this loan.
Yeah.
So for me, that part was the easy part for me because I knew my vision, I knew my passion, I knew what I wanted to create, and that part was pretty easy. It was pretty much coming up with a program plan, sending it to them, making sure trying to sell them on your idea, right? And then
Right.
once you approve, then they just go through the process with you and they help you through the whole process, and they
Sure.
actually assign you to a mentor after you're signed up, and then that mentor helps you through your day to day. You do like a monthly meeting and you kind of ask questions if you have any questions about starting a business. So I had that support as well. And I
Yeah.
think that's also a great resource for a lot of beginning entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I mean, you went through the motions, you know your business. So I mean, you're taking these meetings, but you know what you need to say. It's your passion. But I think what you're saying is preparedness is key. I mean, like you said,
Yeah.
having those numbers, making sure they marry up to the story. Yeah, well, that's important. So actually, that's good. So you got the funding, you had the customer base, and then you guys opened. So your mind probably kind of shifted a bit. I mean, we talked about all the stuff that was kind of keeping you up at night and all those worries and to-dos getting going, but now you're actually running. So when you made that shift, what changed and what was then the to-dos that were sort of in front of you that you were trying to get off your plate? And what was, I don't want to say stressing you out, but what was keeping you up at night at that point?
Um, at that point, I was just trying to juggle life at that point. So I was trying to be a director of the school, trying to be a teacher as well, trying to be a mentor to the teachers that I hired, and also just trying to do the business side and still the marketing. And then also then being like a mom and then being a wife and doing all of that. So that was the hardest adjustment, just to find a balance. There is no balance, but you just need to prioritize at
Yeah,
that point, right? So at
yeah,
that point, it's like what needs the most attention and priority right now, and you kind of go through the list and you try to do the best you can at some of it, right? Because you
yeah.
can't do it well when
And
you're
that
trying
makes
to
perfect
keep.
sense. You have a lot of these conversations and so much of it is focused on strictly like the business, but I think people lose sight of the fact that we are human beings, right? I mean, like you said, you're not just a business owner, you're a mother, you're a wife, you're all those things. So starting that new business is one of the most time consuming things you probably can take on in your life, other than parenting, I suppose. But to do
Yeah,
them all
yeah.
at oh yeah, to do them all at the same time, it's crazy. So
Also, just managing other people, like that's something I was never really in a role before. Like when I was teaching, I was a learning leader, but it was a little bit different when you're actually the boss and then you're trying to manage emotions, trying to manage their life and making sure you're trying to mentor them and train them and guide them. So it's just that part was a big shift for me as well.
yeah.
So
So actually,
yeah.
I have to ask, making that change, did you, hate to put it this way, did you just kind of wing it, or did you have any sources or anything you could lean on to, what do I do to
Yeah.
manage people properly?
Well, luckily, I said I didn't have experience, but I actually, looking back, I did have quite a bit of experience teaching, because at that time my principal actually threw me into this role that's called like the learning leader role as a teacher, and I was like, no, I'm not. I don't want to do it. That's not what I want. But he forced me into it, and I was nervous. I was anxious. I didn't know how to lead.
Yeah,
So then whenever I'm not sure how to do something, I actually just delve right into it and I learn as much as I can about that topic. So when I was put in that position, I don't know if you guys ever heard about John Maxwell, but he's like the number one, he's all about leadership.
yeah,
And I delved right into all of his books. I think I read over 30 of his books and tried to put everything into practice.
yeah,
So I feel like all of that has got me ready for this now. And so far, like getting the feedback from my staff, like we've had a couple meetings now, one-on-one, to kind of gauge where everyone is at, and just getting good feedback. Like everyone's just like, you're such a great boss, you're relatable, but you're also a great mentor, a leader, and we respect you. And that's what you want to hear as a leader, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I went in there not really knowing, like, am I doing this right? But then I kind of followed my gut. But also, I think a big part of like being a boss and a good leader is just connecting with like your employees and getting to know them as people as well, and not like you're above them. It's more of like a
Yeah.
team, right? So I think that's kind of how I approached everything, and luckily
Yeah.
so far it's going really well.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And actually, small tangent, I think the one-on-ones are great.
Yeah,
My question is, how often do you do them? And do you find value in that cadence, or do you have any recommendations?
I so valuable. Like we do it every 2 months because it gets so busy, and it's so important to have that one-on-one with them to kind of quickly gauge like, where are you at? Are you feeling okay? Do I need to help you with anything? Are you struggling with anything? And then also talk about their successes, and also what I've noticed that they've done really well on, and some things that they need to work on, because that also motivates them. And whenever I have these conversations, they always leave saying, I'm so glad we had this, because I always feel so much more motivated after talking. And that's what you want your staff to feel like, because if you don't check in with them, you're not going to know, are they doing okay? Are you doing okay as a boss, right? So it's
Yeah.
just so important to always kind of do
Yeah.
that more consistently.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. So, I mean, now you look at today, right? You've got full capacity, like you said, and we had talked earlier. I think you've got a large wait list of over 30 families asking to be a part of what you're doing. I really think this is an amazing case study for anybody that's nervous about going out and starting their own business. I know there's a lot of horror stories, but this is a true success story, and it's awesome. I guess I might ask, was there anything specific in your process of starting this business that you think significantly contributed to the early success that you're seeing?
I think just the clarity of everything, because I wrote every little detail down of like what I wanted to school to look like. I envisioned it. I I clearly saw what the space even looked like, down to like the furniture I wanted. Like it was just very clear what I wanted in this space. But on top of that, I also broke down, because when you set a goal, the goal, like such a big goal, it seems very daunting. But then what I did was I broke down my goal into little steps. So I got this idea from Brendan Burchard. He's also like a life coach, inspirational kind of guy. So he says to do a battle board. He calls it a battle board, but you pretty much have it somewhere in your room or even on a piece of paper. You split the page in like 12 squares, and the squares represent each month. So for every month, you focus on 2 or 3 things that you need to get done to move yourself closer to that goal.
Yeah, and actually, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like you talked about a lot of granularity in there, but at the same time, you also said, what's going to have the most impact? I would limit myself to 3 things, right? What 3 things are going to move this forward the most? And focusing your time and energy in there makes sense. There'd probably be 20 things you could have done for any point, but those last 15 or whatever, how much farther they can actually move things along, and you've only got so many hours in a day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so now today, again, 6 months in, what do you see as the biggest opportunities for Little Heartprints going forward, and what are you most excited about for the future?
I'm excited just to see the impact that Little Heartprints will have on more families, because we've received so much positive feedback from the parents that are at Little Heartprints right now, that this is exactly what I wanted to hear, obviously. And that just gives me comfort knowing that, we're doing something right. And my vision is actually, it's happening, that
It's
we're actually meeting those goals, right?
yeah,
So I think the biggest thing is I just want to open up more, because I know the obviously the need is there for quality childcare. And That's what I constantly keep hearing from families when they're trying to enroll with us. Like, we are not happy with where we're at right now. We're just trying to find that quality place, that small, cozy, homey feel of a home, but also it's a daycare, right? Like, you have people that are really taking care of your kids and giving them that individualized attention.
Okay, so this was awesome. Before I let you go, if you had any advice specifically for new entrepreneurs that are just starting out, one piece that would really be the most important thing, what would that be?
I say, well, two things. I think I kind of mentioned it briefly, was just to have clarity on your vision, very clear vision, but also the follow through. Like, you have to put it into action, because it's so easy to think about, yes, you have this clear goal, but if you're not going to do anything about it and not break it down, like how I explained with like the battle board, I think that those are just such crucial steps that you need to take to move your goal forward, right? So I
Yeah,
think those are kind of the big takeaways for me
sure.
that I kind of went through the process. And just for anyone that wants to start something, is just focus on that goal, but then break it down, but actually take the steps to do it, like action everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess
Yeah.
looking in the mirror, right? I mean, ultimately it is you
Yeah.
that's got to drive it forward. So,
Yeah.
can you do
Exactly.
it? That makes perfect sense. Thanks again for being here, Doreen. Actually, if people want to get in touch with Little Heartprints Academy or yourself, maybe they're interested, how can they do that?
They can email me at Doreen@littleheartprints.com, or they can just find me on Instagram. It's little.heartprints.academy, or give me a call at 403-829-1014. I'm more than happy to chat with anyone about their passions, or even just about childcare, whatever it is. I'm always open to help.
Okay, everybody, thanks for watching. If you found this useful today, please leave a comment in the comments section below, and also feel free to like and subscribe to get updates for future content. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can do that at info@r2accounting.com, or feel free to head over to our website, r2accounting.com. Again, I'm Sean Ryan. Thanks for watching R2 Cents with R2 Accounting.